Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So there was a request for a shark sock, and so this is what we're going to do today. This was really difficult to do. So this shark sock is done for an 8 all the way to a 9, size 9 US sizes. So that's what we're going to be making today, is the shark slipper. Let's jump right into this. So if you don't want it to be so much room in the heel and so much extra room in the toe, use a thinner number 4. So the yarns that I am using here are all 4 weight, but they are on the thicker side. For this pattern, I chose a 4.5 millimeter. If you need it to be smaller, say a 7, 7.5, then I would go down to a 4 millimeter size and a 4 weight, thinner 4 weight. We're going to start with white. Oh, and I should probably tell you, the pink that I'm going to be using, so I used a little bit of pink for around the mouth. So this is the mouth area. So those are the teeth that I did. And this pink can also be red. It doesn't have to be pink. I just chose to do a pink, and I used a red heart sparkle for it. So I don't know if you can tell, but it does have a little bit of a sparkle. And that's, other than that, it's going to be gray and the white. So we're going to start by making this part first, and then I'll tell you how you can measure it for your foot. And then you can get the exact measurements that you need. You don't have to follow exactly what I'm doing throughout this whole ordeal. And then I'll show you how to sew it all together, because that is the most confusing part of the whole entire project, is how it's sewn together. So we're going to make a slip knot. We're going to chain 5. Let me zoom in so you can see me better. I know it's white I'm using, and it probably really sucks. So I want you to do 4 single crochets back up to the top. I want you to chain 1, turn your work. And now I just want you to do 4 single crochets, so 1 in each stitch. Chain 1, turn your work. So we're going to start increasing now. In this first stitch, I want you to put 2 single crochets. Then I want you to put a single crochet and a single crochet. And then in the last stitch, I want you to put 2 single crochets. So that's how we're going to be increasing the rows that we do an increase row on. Is 2 in the front, 2 in the back, everything singular in between. Chain 1, turn your work. This next row is just going to be 1 single crochet in each stitch. Should have 6 stitches. Chain 1, turn your work. You're going to put 2 single crochets in the first stitch. You're going to put 4 single crochets, 1 in each. And in the last stitch, you're going to put 2 single crochets. You're going to chain 1, turn your work, and now you're going to put 1 single crochet in each of these 8 stitches. The stitch at the end is going to be hard to find. Your next round is going to be an increase round, so you're going to put 2 single crochets in this first stitch. You're going to go 6 single crochets across, 1 in each. And then this last stitch, if you're struggling to find it, if you turn it over, I'm going to turn my light down because I'm using white and it might be just so really very hard to see. But if you turn it over, you can see this V-stitch, and that's how you're going to know that there is an actual stitch at the end. It's a hidden stitch, a lot of people miss it. Chain 1, turn your work. You're going to do 10 single crochets, so 1 in each of these 10 stitches. And again, turning over stitch for 10. Chain 1, turn your work. Increase row, 2 single crochets in this stitch, 8 single crochets across, and then 2 single crochets in the last stitch. Chain 1, turn your work. So now that you get the gist of what we're doing, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. Your next round is going to be 12 single crochets, so that's just 1 in each of the 12 stitches. And again, this looks like I'm at the end. I'm not at the end. It's this weird turning over stitch. It's imperative that you keep counting because you will miss that stitch throughout the project. So it's really important that you count and you turn it over and make sure you're finding the right stitches. Next row is an increase row, so again, pull back, make sure you're getting into this first stitch, put 2 single crochets. Then you're going to do 10 across. And then in the last stitch, you're going to put 2 single crochets in that same space. Chain 1, turn your work. So in between every increase row, there's a single row of just 1 single crochet in each. Well, this next one is going to be 2 rows of 1 single crochet in each of those 14 stitches. Chain 1, turn your work. We're going to do an increase row, so 2 single crochets in this stitch, 2 single crochets in the last stitch, and you're going to have 12 stitches in between where you're going to put 1 single crochet in each. That's my 12 single crochets, and then you've got your last stitch gets 2 single crochets. Chain 1, turn your work. Next round's going to be 1 single crochet in each of these 16 stitches. That's my 16. Chain 1, turn your work. So we have a increase row again, so 2 single crochets in the first stitch, 1 single crochet in the next 14 stitches. That's 14, and your last stitch gets 2 single crochets in the same space. So at this point we need to put a marker so I can walk you through the folding and sewing when we get to that part. So I want you to grab blue markers so we're all on the same page. So get these light blue colors if you've got some. I really hope you have stitch markers. A lot of people don't have them. Find something, whether it be the same color of thread, if you can find some blue yarn, stick in there and mark this row, or a certain color of whatever you use, whatever you're using. If you can't get something that's blue, then just get something that you can associate with blue so that we can walk through the sewing process when this is all done. So this next row is just going to be 18 single crochets. 1 single crochet in each of these 18 stitches, but I need you to mark each row. So this is the first row, the first stitch, and then after I've done my last stitch I'll mark it on the other side as well. So this is my last stitch. So I'm going to mark that row. Chain 1, turn your work. So now that your rows are marked, for the next 4 rows, so you're going to need a row counter. For the next 4 rows, I just want you to put 1 single crochet in each of these 18 stitches. Not missing the first stitch and not missing the last stitch, that turning over stitch, and I will see you on the other side. And remember, keep counting. I need to make sure these numbers are accurate. So that is my 4 rows. We need to get some markers out again. And this time the markers are going to be red. I don't have any red in this one. Hold on. Some red markers. It's like I own 2 red markers. I don't know how that happened, but... So, 2 red markers. So this is what you should have at this point. The next row I need you to mark with red markers. I gotta chain 1 and turn. So your next row is gonna be a decrease row. So we're gonna decrease the first 2 stitches. So go in and pull up a loop. Go into your second stitch, pull up a loop. Yarn over and pull through all 3. That's gonna be a decrease. You're going to do 1 on these 2 stitches, the last 2 stitches, so in between you're going to count 14 single crochets, let me mark this first. So that's 14 single crochets, and then these last 2 stitches are going to be decrease. And then you're going to mark the end of that row. Chain 1, turn your work. And now your next round is just going to be 1 single crochet in each of these 16 stitches. Chain 1, turn your work. We're going to decrease the next row. So you're going to go in, pull up a loop, go into your second stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. And then you're going to do 12 single crochets to the other side where you're going to decrease again. That's my 12 single crochets. I got 2 stitches left. I'm going to decrease these 2. So you're going to see this written, chain 1, turn. You're going to see this written as SC2 tog. That means single crochet 2 together. And that's just a decrease. It's only written that way for, well, I guess I could put decrease or SC2 tog. It all means the same thing. So this next row is just going to be 1 single crochet in each of these 14 stitches. Chain 1, turn your work. Your next round is going to be SC2 tog, so do a decrease here. You're going to do 10 single crochets and then a decrease at the end. That's my 10, and then a decrease at the end. Chain 1, turn your work. Your next round is going to be, this is what it should look like. Sorry, my thing is rolling up. That's what it should look like. Almost spade-like. So your next round is just going to be 12 single crochets across, 1 in each stitch. Chain 1, turn your work. So far, pretty easy peasy. The whole thing's easy. It's just the sewing it together that gets confusing for some people, for a lot of people, including myself. This was not an easy project to do, but a long-time subscriber, Tara, she requested the shark sock slipper. You're going to decrease the first 2 stitches in this next row. Let me try that again. You're going to do 8 single crochets. And you're going to decrease these last 2 stitches. Chain 1, turn your work. Your next row is going to be 10 single crochets, 1 in each stitch. Chain 1, turn your work. So your increase, we're going to start increasing again, and it starts in this next row. You're going to do 2 single crochets in their first stitch. Then you're going to do 8 single crochets across to the other side. And then you're going to do 2 single crochets in the same space on this side. Chain 1, turn your work. And now you're going to do 1 single crochet in each of these 12 stitches. Chain 1, turn your work. Your next round is going to be 2 single crochets in your first stitch. You're going to do 10 single crochets across. And then in your last stitch, you're going to put 2 single crochets. Chain 1, turn your work. Your next round is going to be 1 single crochet in each of these 14 stitches. Now, really pull back to get this first stitch so you don't miss it. Chain 1, turn your work. Again, make sure you're counting because you will miss this one on the end. It's a weird turning over stitch, and if you're not counting, you may drop a stitch. So again, pull back. You're going to do 2 single crochets in this stitch. You're going to do 12 single crochets across to the other side. And you're going to do 2 single crochets in the last stitch. Chain 1, turn your work. So this next row, so this should look like a fish right now, ironically. Let's find some pink markers for this one. And this row is just going to be 1 single crochet in each of those 16 stitches that you should have. So that's my first stitch. And that's my 16th stitch. Chain 1, turn your work. So this is an increased row. You're going to put 2 single crochets in the first stitch. You're going to do 14 single crochets, 14 single crochets across. That's my 14 across. I got one more stitch here, which is my stupid turning over stitch. I'm going to put 2 single crochets in. Chain 1 and turn my work. So you've got 18 stitches, and you're going to put 1 single crochet in each of these 18 stitches. Chain 1, turn your work. I need you to do at least 18 rows. If your foot is smaller than a size 7.5, then I would probably do your measurements at 16 rows and maybe even 15 rows. So this is where you can make it to fit whatever size foot you want. For now, it's 1/2 double in each stitch. So you have 18 stitches. So a 1/2 double is you yarn over, go into your stitch, pull up a loop. You should have 3 loops on. You're going to yarn over and go through all 3. That's a 1/2 double. So yarn over, go into your stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all. You're going to do a 1/2 double in each row for the next 18 rows. Then I'll show you what I was talking about as far as measurements. So I will see you on the other side. So this is my 18 rows. Right now, right here where you increased, you put your thing here. 18 rows takes me to 8.5 inches. So if you look at the chart, 8.5 inches is size 5. So I know you're going, what the hey? How is this going to turn into a size 8 to 9? So this is how we fold our slipper. So this, in this where we decrease, is this for the heel. So you still have all of this part of the heel here, which is all of this here. Okay? So you have all of this heel. And up to here, so 18 stitches when all sewn together is 9.5. It's hard to see. 9.5. It's probably still hard to see. That's easier. 9.5 inches. Because this is where we decreased in here. I know, this is probably very confusing to listen to. Once this is folded and sewn together like this, your heel is going to be back here. Plus, we still have all of this over here to build onto. So at 9.5 inches, that puts you at a size 8. According to the chart that I put up. I'm going to put it up again. So 8.5 inches, or 9.5 inches, gives you a size 8. What we do here determines how it's going to fit our foot. So, measuring from, if I measure this whole length, it's not going to be an accurate measurement. But if I measure from where I decreased to the edge of what I have, minus what I still have to build onto it with the gray, I'm at 8.5 inches. So that puts me, this is made for a size 8. So if you're smaller than that, then you're going to need to cut out a couple of rows and maybe go to 7.5 inches. Will probably work for a size 6 to a size 7. Do you get my drift? Do you see what I'm saying? I hope you understand what I'm saying. Once you're done your 18 rows or however many rows that you're doing, we still have to, let me turn my camera back around. I want you to do 2 rows. So if you're size 8, you don't have to worry about all this math. You can just follow mine. If you're a size 8, 8.5. Let's just say 8, 8.5. So for the next 2 rows, you still have 18 stitches. You're just going to put one single crochet in, a single crochet in each for two rows. I'm going to put it on this screen. So we're not doing half double anymore. We're doing singles. So here's where we switch to gray. So my last stitch, I'm not going to pull up. Let me do this again. So for my last stitch, I'm going to go in, I'm going to pull up a loop. But I'm going to finish that with my gray. If you want to pin these together to keep your work short, I would suggest it because this gets pretty long and it'll just make your life a lot easier. Just use a big one or a different color than the ones. Mine are, this is just an extra big one. So I'll know that that's not part of the project, but it will make your life a lot easier. Chain one, turn your work. So we're going to start increasing now. So that's what it should look like. It should start flaring out there. So this is what you should have at this point. From here, I want you to do 14 rows, half double crochets. Now, that's based on a size 8 foot, 8.5 foot. So you may have to, you've got your thing folded, that's where your heel goes. You may have to put your foot in there and then see how far up your foot goes, but this has to go all the way to your ankle, if that helps at all. And you're doing half double crochets. So I wrote down 14 rows because that's for a size 8. And I will see you on the other side. This is what you should have at this point. This is my 14 rows done. So I know I've got this pinned to hold it because this is long. It's a long project. But I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to sew this up to the blue peg, or the pegs. We're going to sew this up to the blue stitch markers. So fold that back. And it folds right here where we came in. That's where the fold's going to be for your toe. So your toe's going to be there. If this goes up here with one row in between, then you're good. And I'll tell you why. You put your foot in here. Put it all the way back into the ankle. Now keep in mind, this foot's not quite the size I need it to be. I'm going to tell you what size this foot is in a minute. This foot is 9 inches, so it's a little short. But it's not that short. So it is a little bit though. So this is going to be on your toe. So some of this gray is going to be on the bottom. And it has to come up when sewn together to be even with the top of your white. Can you see that? And I'll tell you why. Because I'm going to decrease a bit and then I'm going to start the head of the shark. So if this is, and I mean, even if it's shorter, if you find that this is even shorter than the white, that's okay. But just remember to pull this down. But if that's anywhere near the white, that's perfect. Because now I'm going to start the head, and the head will finish up here. Because you want this to be shorter than the nose. So if you have yours looking like that, now if this is too long and it's already up here, you need to take a couple of rows off. So that's what it should look like right now. You digging it? You picking up on what I'm putting down? It is so hard to do slippers when so many people's feet are so many different sizes. But I'm hoping that this video kind of helps you just make your own size. Now as far as this part, you can always just keep putting your foot. Now that you know this is the heel, you can keep putting your foot in there and seeing where it comes to. It should go right to the tippy top of your toes. And then this is just kind of extra space for when we sew and stuff like that. And like I said, some of this gray will be down underneath. Anyway, chain 1, turn your work. Your next row is going to be a 3 half double crochet increase. And it's going to bring us up to 25 stitches. So do 3 half doubles. And then your next stitch is going to get the increase of 2 half doubles in the same space. And repeat. And my last stitch is this stupid turning over stitch. And I put my 2 half double crochets in there. Chain 1, turn your work. You should have 25 stitches. For the next 2 rows, I just want you to put a single crochet in each of those 25 stitches. So that is my 2 rows. You can see a little bit of an increase, not much. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. So we're starting the head now. For the next 2 rows, you should have, 21 stitches. So for the next 2 rows, I just want you to put 1 single crochet in each of these 21 stitches. So your next row, once I get unstuck, is going to be another decrease. So for next row is for the next 5 rows actually, you're going to do 1 single crochet in each of those 19 stitches. So that's my 5 rows done. Okay, we're going to increase. This is what it should look like. So you can just fasten off. You're gonna need a sewing tail to sew this nose part down. But we're not gonna do that right away. Again, I probably have too much. Okay. So this is where we start to sew. I don't know if you folded yours down like mine, but I'm going to unfold everything because that's the way that we'll start, just so there's no confusion. The only reason I folded this down and tacked it was because it's really long. And I'm going to do my best to try to show you everything I'm doing here. So, this is what it should look like. This is what you should have. We're starting with the white. You're going to take this, you're going to fold it till the pink and red markers meet. Okay? Just like that. So the pink and the red markers meet up. We're going to take a piece of yarn for sewing. Make a slip knot on one end. Thread your needle with the other. This almost bends naturally, so it's not like you have to really try. Starting at the blue marker, you're going to start to sew. So go in and then come through the slip knot that you made. This is being sewn inside out, by the way, so everything we do, we're going to take it and flip it around. So if you want, you can tie this in a knot. Just for added security, you'll have to tuck that in later. So I just want you to whip stitch, sewing any way you want. So if you want to do a mattress stitch, you can do one of those. I'm just going to whip stitch it. You can probably take these out. I don't see why we would keep them. So if you want a more rounder heel, you can kind of cut in a little bit on a diagonal. Gives you a kind of a different shape to your heel. You don't have to have all this stuff on the outside. So you're up here and there's really nowhere to go because this is already attached. So I'm not going deep. I'm just going on the surface of my yarn. I'm just going to scooch over here to the other side because, like I said, this is being turned right side in, so it's not like it's going to harm anything. And then I want you to sew down this side until you get to the blue marker. Don't take this blue marker out. You need to kind of keep it there. So just make sure that you're making a knot here. So you can weave this in or do whatever you're going to do. So Now I need you to take this whole thing, keep in mind this has to come back, so you can almost fold it back like that where the blue tags are. Keep that back. This here gets folded. Now again, right here is going to be a natural fold. It's just going to want to fold itself over. So these are the exact same shape. So that's how you know you've got it folded properly. You should have some gray still on the bottom part. So that's your foot part. You should have some gray. But it'll fold naturally. That's a natural fold. What I want you to do is sew up the side. Here, let me get some yarn here. I'll show you one side and then you can just go and do the other side. So make sure this is following the exact same shape. You're gonna, this is your heel. So I kind of came in to shape the heel differently. You can do the same thing with the toe. If you don't want a square toe like that, you can sew around like this. Do you know what I mean? So I'm going to go in, because I didn't do that with my other one. I'm not going to do it with this one because I think it would look stupid because they wouldn't look the same. But if you want a rounded toe, I would suggest you do that. So after you've attached, you're just going to whip stitch these two ends together. So you're going to be like, this part's wider than the other part. And yes, you're absolutely right. It absolutely is, because it needs a room for your foot. So each side, you're going to have to make these even to sew them. So this should crinkle a little bit because it is wider. Alright, just about at the blue marker. So I am going to remove it. So I am right here. And here we have a crook where I've got the sole and then I've got part of the heel. So let me move my marker so you can see what I'm doing. So I need you to sew. The blue marker was here because we sewed up to it, so that's the corner. That's where your blue marker was. I need you to sew this all together. And then up this way by about a centimeter. Or half an inch. So not much, just a little bit. This is going to help with the heel part. So I'm going to make a knot. So that's what I need you to do. Do you get me? So when you come over to do this side, as you can see, it's much wider, but you still need to make sure when you're sewing it, you put the two ends together. Because this gives you all the room for your foot. So put the ends together. We're going to sew this up, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to get here, and you're going to sew about a half inch past your blue marker. So this corner and everything has to get sewn up, just like this. So just make sure you're even. Just kind of look at it and make sure that you're even. I am going to make a knot. I'm going to weave in my end. So if you're new to my channel, I'd just like you to know that I don't sew well. So these two guys have to be hidden, tucked away. Now that we've got this all figured out, we can turn it right side in. Now again, I didn't sew my toe up properly, so it's not going to be exactly round. So turn everything in the way it's supposed to be. Just like that. So that's what you should have at this point. Your slipper. And then this gray part, this is the nose, so it has to fold down in this direction. So this is where you put your foot in. His nose has to fold down like this. So again, it's got a natural fold. You'll know exactly where it needs to fold. And you can sew that up too. Do not sew across the bottom. I need to use that to put teeth in. So you're going to sew up the side, pop across, sew down the side. Just the sides. So I'm going to very politely, I mean you can go in and go through the, go down underneath here. Because we're not opening that back up. That's going to stay closed. I just don't want you to sew here because I got to put teeth in there. So pop across. So don't expect this to be too round because it's a shark. It's not a dolphin. They're very different faces. When you come to the end here, tie a knot. Do some very polite weaving because this is kind of exposed. So I'm going to come under here. I'm going to weave up here. So I'm just above my stitches, but I need the back loop of those stitches, so just be careful how you weave. Very politely. So this is the beginning. Where's my foot? The beginning of our, so it should go up at least that far on your leg, which is not that much past the ankle, but my toes are all, so some people put a fin on the toes if you look at pictures and stuff like that, which I did, and I really do not like the fins on the toes because everybody's making them look like a dolphin fin. A shark's fin is up and down, a dolphin fin is side to side, and it's just, we're not doing that. I got a dorsal fin that goes here, and then the two side fins here. So, the next thing we need to do is finish this mouth area. So this is where the pink comes in. This is a red heart sparkle. So it's got, let me take some of the glare off my light. It has some sparkle to it. That's what I chose to use, but if you used red, you would be perfectly fine. But I'm going to use the pink because I used the pink on the other one. So you just need to make a slip knot and reattach. So that's complicated to a lot of people, how to sew this thing together. I probably spent too much time on it with you for the video, but you know, at least you know, thoroughly know. Oh, I gotta change my battery and then I'll come right back. Alright, crisis averted. So make a slip knot and you're going to reattach. And I want you to reattach down here on the corner. So this is your nose, it's what we just sewed. So attach down here at the corner. Corners are just way better things to attach. So I want you to attach. You can use a single crochet. But then I want you to put another single crochet in there. That'll be the one we actually slip stitch into when we come back around. There's no stitches here, so you're just going to basically stick your hook in wherever you can and make stitches. I managed to make 48 all the way up to here. I had 48 stitches. But you don't have to go by my numbers. Just stick your hook in wherever you can stick your hook in and put some stitches in here. If you want to put 2 down here in the corner, that's probably a good idea. That's what I did on my last one too. And then when you pop across to the gray, you could just put the 1. Alright, so I'm up here where these stitches are that go across here. I told you not to sew. This is the bottom of the nose. I need you to get into the back loops only. So these dudes. Those are the only ones I want you to go into when going across. Are the back loops. So I'm going to put 2 in here like I did on the other side. And I'm going to come into this first stitch I made and I'm going to fasten off. Oops. Stuck on a straggler. This sparkling yarn is pretty, but you get an awful lot of stragglers from that sparkle. So this can get tucked in. It's a long video. I just wanted to do it all in one video because to have you wait for a part 2 the next day would really, really suck. Oh, hey! Let's tie these 2 together just for added security. I like it when that happens. So I know it's not much looking like a shark right yet, but I'll put some teeth on and it probably will start. I'm just gonna stick with this tweed stuff because that's what I did for my last one. So again, you just need to make a slip knot and attach. If I feel like I'm racing through this video, it's because I really am. I wanted to shove this whole thing into one video without it being too long. That's why it feels like I'm racing through it. And it's like 4 o'clock in the morning and I'm doing my best to just get it done. So you want to take your white and reattach down here at the bottom like you did with the there's the other guys. Reattach using a single crochet. Don't worry about putting another single crochet in here. Okay, so with the teeth I did, count that as number 1 single crochet. This will be number 2 single crochet, and then I did a half double crochet, chain 2 picot. So yarn over, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, do your half double, but then you're going to chain 2 and then you're going to picot, which means you're going to come back down and go through those 2 stitches. Let me get you closer. So you're going to come down, you're going to go through those 2 stitches. So I'm going to turn my light down so you can see what I'm talking about. Then you're going to slip stitch and then do 2 single crochets. So we just keep going, it's just a constant motion. 2 single crochets and then another half double crochet, chain 2. You need to come down and find these 2 sideways stitches right there. Go into those 2 sideways stitches, slip stitch, 2 single crochets. Oh, I'm stuck on something. 2 single crochets. What am I stuck on? So that will give you these little guys for teeth. So 2 single crochets, half double, chain 2, picot. And continue all the way around. You're probably wondering why I'm up so late filming a video. I'll tell you. It's a lot easier to film a video in the middle of the night when everybody in your neighborhood is sleeping, including your husband and your dog, not necessarily your cat, because things can get pretty loud. Mowing of lawns, other dogs barking in the neighborhood that gets your dog going, traipsing across the floor. I'm in the basement, so that, and I'm a night owl. I worked nights for that was my cat. I worked nights for many, turn this back up. I worked nights for many years at a factory driving a fork truck, so I'm been a night owl most of my life. So I am back around. I don't really have much choice as far as where I'm putting my stuff, so I'm just going to put a single crochet. Well, I just did a tooth right there. So I'm not going to get 2 single crochets in. But I get, well, maybe. Well, I did 2 single crochets. And then I'm going to pop over here and I'm going to fasten off You just need a weaving tail. So once you put it on a foot, it tends to look like a shark. I mean, once the eyes are on, it looks better, but so far so good. So, I would say next we can get the eyes done. So I used a 14mm safety eye. I used a 14mm. They're pretty big. And then I crocheted an eye thing. It's really quick. Let's do a magic ring. You're going to put 6 single crochets in here. That is 6. But you know what? I don't have a stitch marker. After all that, all the stitch markers I've been through, I don't have one right now. So your next round, you're going to do 1 single crochet and an increase. And that is it. So that's 1 single crochet. Next stitch gets the increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. And repeat. You should do it 3 times for a total of 9 stitches. So you can go into the next stitch. I wouldn't really close that hole up because you're going to need it. Go into the next stitch and fasten off. You don't need a sewing tail. We're just going to weave. The safety eye will hold this on, so there's no need to actually sew it. So that makes things even easier peasier. Your safety eye goes in like that. All this crap will get pushed down. All this crap behind here will get pushed down when you put the eye on. You just need to figure out where you're putting the eye. So I came down probably the 3rd row from where the nose is sewn. And I think I was about 5 stitches up. Because you want it to be more on the side than anything. Hey, that looks good right there. See? Looks like a shark. It's getting there. Anyway, once you determine, this is going to be on the front part of your leg, and you're really not going to feel it. It's actually not even popped through all that much. You can see. I haven't felt mine from taking it off and on, so, but I haven't worn it yet either because I didn't have the other one. So let's go ahead and do that for our second eye, so that this baby can start looking like a shark. Oh God, baby shark. I wasn't going there. I was not going there, I swear. All right, my eyes are done. I did take some white and I made little lines on the shark. So if you want to do that, you can do that next. I didn't do anything to the other end. I just weaved it in after I was done making my mark. So I put them, let me see. That's the corner. So I put them in that area. I put them on before the fin, so it's up to you. Whatever you want to do. So when I go down here, I don't come back out the same. I go next door where I want to start my other one. That's how I did my last one. And then I went down. And I weaved just on the inside all the way across. Not only does it kind of secure it, just make sure you're not going through. It kind of is going to help kind of hold it there. So I am just coming through the top part, and I'm actually just kind of breaking through some of these pieces of yarn. That's how I'm moving my yarn. So you just kind of gotta pop out in a spot. That looks good. I'm going to start on the bottom just to be safe. So, next we'll start the fins. And then we're going to be done this bad boy. So, next I would like to start on the fins. So, I'm going to do one fin with you. The one that I'm going to do now is the side fin. So, I'll do one with you and then I'll put my pattern on the screen. You can do the other one. We're going to start with the magic ring. And 6 single crochets. Your next round is going to be 1 single crochet and an increase. So that's my 1 single crochet. So the next stitch gets the increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. And repeat. This will bring you up to 9 stitches. The reason for this is because I wanted to have a little bit of a point on the top. Now I want to turn the fin of a shark. Let me show you. So these fins on the shark kind of go back a little bit because that's what fins do on dolphins, sharks. They kind of go back. It's an aerodynamic thing, I think. And the same with the dorsal fin. It kind of goes back. I know that might be hard to see, but so what I'm going to do next is the reason for it and how I actually got it to go back. So your next round is going to be 5 single crochets That's number 1. That's 5 single crochets. I'm just going to flip this around because it's easier. And then you're going to do 4 half double crochets. So this will help with the whole turning process. It's just an easier way to do it. So your next round is going to be 2 single crochets and an increase. So bring you up to 12 stitches. That's number 1. That's 2 single crochets and then the increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. And repeat. Your next round is going to be 6 single crochets and 6 half double crochets, because you should have 12 stitches. That's number 1. That's 6 single crochets, and then we're going to do 6 half doubles. Your next round is going to be 3 single crochets and an increase. That's number 1. That's 3 single crochets and then your increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. This will bring you up to 15 stitches. Your next round is going to be 4 single crochets and an increase. That's number 1. That's 4 single crochets. And then your increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. This will bring you up to 18 stitches. Your next round is going to be 9 single crochets. Your next 2 rounds, sorry. Your next 2 rounds are going to be 9 single crochets and 9 half double crochets. And for your last 2 rows, I want you to just put 1 single crochet in each of these. 18 stitches. So this is what you should have. You should see a natural curve this way. Well, it's not natural, we put it there, but... So you can fasten off where you're whip stitching this shut, but you will need a sewing tail as well. I'm not stuffing this. So you got to make sure you keep it like this. Like, I understand we left off here, but we can't just fold it like that because it's not the way I designed it. So this is how I designed it. So unfortunately, we're sitting here with our fin, but I mean, honestly, without sewing, just move this over to here so we can start to whip stitch. So whip stitch is back loop to back loop, but we can just go into all of this stitch. And this is the tricky part. So you gotta make sure that it's angled. Make sure I'm on camera. Make sure it's angled away from the head. You don't want it near the head. So this is how I sewed it on. I figured out where I wanted it. So I'm just right behind these white lines. So I've just folded it in half. The part I want it sewn to. And then I just did a whip stitch for this part. But I'll show you, it's not that simple, not quite yet. So I'm just grabbing a couple of pieces of yarn and going into the fin. So I'm not going into the slipper. I'm just grabbing pieces of yarn. Now, I don't sew. So if you have a better way, by all means. I'm just trying to give you ideas. You know, maybe you're new or you sew like me. So once I had the one side on, I went to the other side, folded it down because I did a mattress stitch. And the reason why I do it like this is because they stay up. That's why. Because they stay up. If I was to do it the way I've seen others, by just kind of leaving it at that, you know, it's done, it's a done deal, it would fall down all the time. This way, it stays up. So, a mattress stitch. So I want you to go in, I want you to pick up the fin. Right along here is where I just sewed. So I gotta go into this. So I'm gonna pick up some of the, and you might think I'm actually quite high, but I kinda need to be to make sure it doesn't flop over all the time. And then I'm gonna grab a couple of pieces from the slipper part, and I'm gonna do that all the way across. So just grabbing a couple of pieces from the fin and a couple of pieces from the slipper, and then pull. And that's what I did, and that's what I do for a lot of things that I don't want to flop over. And I find they don't flop over. But I don't sew. I know I can't stress that enough. Anyway, go ahead and make your other fin, get it sewn on. And I will meet you right back here. And we'll get the dorsal fin done, and then that'll be it. So it's really hard to get them even, and I don't think mine are completely even, but I think they are on my other one, so I don't feel so bad about it. So the last thing on the agenda is the dorsal fin, and then we are done. So I'm going to do the same thing to make it curve backwards, because that's what they do. So we're going to make a magic ring, and we're going to put 6 single crochets in there. Your next round is going to be 1 single crochet in each stitch. So use a stitch marker here or not, doesn't matter. We're just doing 6 stitches because I really want to point on this. So that's my 6 stitches. You can turn this bad boy around. Make sure your middle's as closed as it's gonna be. I'm just shaping it, really. I'll probably have to do that a couple times. So now we can kind of jump right into making it bigger. So we're going to do 1 single crochet and an increase because I still really want that point. So that brings me up to 9 stitches. And I want you to put 1 single crochet in each of these 9 stitches. Let's get this guy down here. And I'm just going to shape it. Your next round is going to be 2 single crochets and an increase. That's number 1, that's number 2, an increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. I probably don't have to repeat myself, but I think it's a habit now. This brings you up to 12 stitches. All right, now we're going to get all tricky. This next round, don't work ahead of me, because it is different. We're going to do 3 single crochets. So that's 3, counting this stitch marker. And then this stitch, you're going to put the increase in it. So 2 single crochets in the same space. Then I'm going to do 2 single crochets. Then I'm going to do a half double. And then this next stitch gets 2 half doubles. Then I'm going to do 3 half doubles. And then this last stitch gets 2 half doubles in the same space. So I basically just did a 3 single crochet or a 3 stitch increase using single crochet and half double at the same time, so I can make it turn, which is what the objective is right now. You should have 15 stitches. Your next round, we're going to be weird too. You're going to do 4 single crochets. That's number 1. That's 4 single crochets. And then this next stitch gets the increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. Then you're going to do 3 single crochets. Then you're going to do 1 half double in the next stitch, and then 2 half doubles in the next stitch in the same space. You get what I'm doing? I'm doing a 4 half double increase, or a 4 stitch increase with 2 different stitches, because I need it to turn. So 4 half doubles here, and then your increase of 2 half doubles in the same space. Now you should have 18 stitches. Your next round is going to be 5 single crochets and an increase all the way around. So we're back to single crochet only. That's number 1. That is 5 single crochets, and then your increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. Do you see how it goes up? And when I start building it with the single crochets, it's going to start to curve, which is what I needed it to do. So repeat this. This will bring you up to 21 stitches. All singles. And your next 2 rounds to finish it off is just going to be 1 single crochet in each of these 21 stitches. And I will see you on the other side. So that is it. You can fasten off with sewing tail. So this goes on curved back like that. And I basically sewed it on the same way as I sewed on the fins. You gotta find your middle. Actually, first I gotta... Actually, you don't have to whip stitch this shut if you don't want to. So, figure out where you want it. It's got to be back here further. It's hard to figure out where it's supposed to be. So I'm going to line up that with the end of my stuff right there. So yeah, you can whip stitch this shut if you want. It's probably easier. So I'll just make sure it arches back. Figure out where your middle is. Kind of do the same thing, just kind of bring it up. Here we go. And that is it. That is it for the shark slippers. So if you don't want to use the safety eyes, I'm sure if you you can still do this part. And then if you say did a magic ring of 4 single crochets, you could probably make an eye that big, and then you can just sew the two together. So if you don't want that sticking through. But other than that, yeah, see, my fin's not going to stand up on its own. These fins will, because I sewed them on properly. This fin, not so much. Gotta get my other leg. Got 2 feet. 2 feetsies. There. I don't think I sewed this one on straight either, but there we have it. Our shark slippers. Well, thanks for joining me, guys. And I'll see you in the next video.